Assalamu alaikum, dear students of 9th class. Today our lesson is The Tempest. The Tempest is actually divided into two lessons, two parts, The Tempest 1 and The Tempest 2. So ये लेसन जो है ये लिखी है विलियम शेक्सपियर ने. विलियम शेक्सपियर आप जानते हैं एक बहुत ही मशहूर अंग्रेज़ी इंग्लिश पोइट एंड प्ले राइट था. इसके बारे में ये देखिए आप दी गई वाइडली रिगार्ड एज द ग्रेटेस्ट राइटर इन इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज, यानी बहुत सबसे बड़ा ये राइटर है. तो बड़ा ही पॉपुलर था, बड़ा मशहूर था ड्रामेटिस्ट. उसको आमतौर पर इंग्लैंड का नेशनल पोइट भी कहा जाता है. तो उसने बहुत सारी ये लिखी हैं. उसमें 38 प्लेज हैं, 154 सोनेट्स है, टू लॉन्ग नरेटिव पोएम्स हैं एंड सेवरल अदर पोएम्स. तो इसके बारे में आपको ये जानकारी दी हुई है, तो ये आपको पढ़नी चाहिए. तो ये जो कहानी है द टेम्पेस्ट आपको पता है तूफ़ान, जब समंदर में तूफ़ान आता है ना, तो उसको हम टेम्पेस्ट कहते हैं. तो ये लास्ट प्ले रिटन बाय शेक्सपियर, यानी आखिरी जो है उसने लिखी है. तो इज़ अ ब्यूटिफुल प्ले containing beautiful verse, wisdom of thought and the themes of repentance and reconciliation. There is a storm, a shipwreck and the beautiful love story of Miranda and Ferdinand. तो इसमें हम देखेंगे कि क्या क्या चीज़ें होंगी. देखिए एक तूफ़ान भी है, इस तूफ़ान का जिक्र है. उसमें जो शिप है रैक हो जाता है, शिप तबाह हो जाता है. इसी तरह इसमें एक रिपेंटेंस यानी पछतावा भी है, रिकन्सिलेशन भी है, यानी फिर बिछड़ों का मिलना भी है. तो बहुत सारी ये ब्यूटीफुल स्टोरी, और इसमें एक लव स्टोरी है मिरांडा और फर्डिनेंड की, जो हम आगे पढ़ेंगे. तो फिलहाल लेट मी रीड सम लाइन्स फॉर यू. इट इज़ फॉर मॉडल रीडिंग. तो बाद में उसका हम ये करेंगे समरी वगैरह. देखिए, ऑन ए लोनली आइलैंड इन द सी. देखिए इसको आइलैंड पढ़ा जाता है, IS है लेकिन IS साइलेंट रहता है, तो इसको हम आइलैंड पढ़ेंगे. इन द सी देयर वंस लिव्ड 3 people. A wise old man named Prospero, his beautiful young daughter Miranda, and their servant Caliban. Father and daughter had come to the island 12 years before, when Miranda was a mere baby. She could hardly remember having seen any human face except her father's. As for Caliban, he hardly looked like human. He looked more like a fish than a man. Prospero had another servant, a spirit named Ariel, whom he commanded by means of his magic. Before Prospero's arrival, there lived on the island a witch named Sycorax. The ugly Caliban was her son. She imprisoned Ariel in the heart of a pine tree, and she died without releasing him. Prospero, on his arrival on the island, found him and released him. Ariel became Prospero's faithful servant and carried out his master's wishes. At Prospero's command, he could raise storms in the sea or make thunder in the air. One day, there arose a terrible storm in the sea. As Miranda looked out, she saw a fine ship struggling in the midst of the storm. "Oh, father," she said, "if you have by your power raised this tempest, please put an end to it. What a fine ship is there, struggling in the cruel waves. The cries of the drowning sailors seem to knock against my very heart." "Do not be afraid," replied Prospero. "Not a single person shall perish. As for the storm, I have raised it for your sake. I have done it for you, my beloved daughter. You do not know, my beloved daughter, who do not know who you are." Now for the first time, Prospero told Miranda the strange story of her life. 12 years ago, he said, I was Duke of Milan. Knowledge was my chief aim in life. Wealth and worldly possessions hardly mattered to me. Leaving the management of state affairs to my brother Antonio, whose loyalty I never doubted, I devoted all my time to studies. Meanwhile, he grew greedy for power and possessions. He bribed my ministers and plotted against me with my enemy, the king of Naples. One dark night, their soldiers took me out of my palace with young with you crying in my arms. They did not dare to kill us openly, so they put us into an old and damaged ship that could hardly float, and left us to perish at sea. But there was a kind old lord named Gonzalo. He was loyal to me at heart and was not in favor of Antonio's plot. He secretly stored the ship with fresh water, food, and clothes. Sorry, clothes and my precious books, which I valued more than my dukedom. Driven by favorable winds, we floated to this lonely island. But what's your reason for raising this tempest? Asked Miranda, who was still thinking of the drowning sailors. Fortune has now begun to favor me, replied Prospero. The tempest has, in a strange manner, brought all my enemies to this island. They are in the ship, you see. For the present, it is enough for you to know that much. Then Prospero touched Miranda gently with his magic wand, and she fell asleep. Come, my Ariel, come, said Prospero, waving his magic wand. Ariel appeared. Here I am, master, he said. I am ready to go wherever you ask me to go and to do whatever you want. Have you performed the task I gave you? Yes, master. I have done everything just as you commanded me. I attacked the ship with storm, fire, and thunder, till the sailors gave up in despair. Not a single person in the ship kept his head. The king's son Ferdinand leapt into the sea. Now he is sitting sadly in a corner of the island, thinking that his father is drowned. Meanwhile, in another part of the island, the king, your brother, and others are looking for Ferdinand, who they fear is drowned. As for the ship, I have brought it safely to the harbor. You have performed your task perfectly, said Prospero. Now we have some very important work on our hands. The time between now and evening is precious for both of us. More work, sir. Let me remind you of the promise you gave me, namely, to give me my freedom. What? Said Prospero angrily. How dare you ask for freedom before the time is out? Where would you be but for me? Have I to remind you how I released you from the pine tree? I am sorry, master. I'll obey you willingly, said Ariel. Good, said Prospero. After 2 days, I'll set you free. Meanwhile, carry out your tasks with a good heart. Then Prospero told him what he should do, and away went Ariel happily to the place where Ferdinand sat weeping over his father's death. तो ये हमने पढ़ा. तो इंशाल्लाह कल मैं इसका आपको समरी दूंगा और इसका मीनिंग वगैरह दूंगा. तो आज के लिए ये मेरे ख्याल से काफ़ी है. थैंक यू.